we will be casually maneuvering our attention to the ever-building storm that is the Revolutionary Army, undoubtedly the most mysterious faction within the series and full of highly renowned figures whom we will be ranking here today. And that is 14th place, which is inhabited by Terry Gilteo. And who is Terry Gilteo, you ask? Well, he's this guy, and despite his mere 49 votes, he's far from irrelevant. You may initially mistake Terry for another miscellaneous member of the Revolutionary Army because he shares their similar aesthetics, but Terry is actually a fairly highly ranking officer who is first seen in the Return to Water 7 arc, telling Dragon about Luffy defeating Crocodile as well as the Enies Lobby incident. And obviously Terry had no idea that Luffy was Dragon's son, but then again, nobody did. And sadly we haven't seen much of, if any, of Terry since then, and the only reason why we know his name is through the fun of data books. So let's move on to someone hopefully less obscure. And we haven't quite hit that mark there because in number 13 we have Ahiru. Although to be fair, Ahiru should be a much more familiar face than Terry Gilteo because she was introduced in chapter 905 and actually holds an incredibly important position as the deputy commander of the East Army. The East Army being the one that is commanded overall by Bello Betty. And Ahiru also happens to mean duck in Japanese, which follows an intriguing minor motif that you may or may not be aware of, where Oda has a tendency to name female characters after birds, which obviously doesn't apply to everyone, but there are a startling amount like Suru, Kuina, Nojiko, Hina, Mozu, Kiwi, Tashigi, and even Robin, all of whom are named after birdies. So Ahiru joins them in this intriguing sub-theme. Good on her. But now in number 12, we have a more familiar face with Bunny Joe. And I would like to emphasize the whole familiar face thing because knowing his name would be pretty unlikely. However, Bunny Joe is who I think of as the stereotypical Revolutionary Army member who has some great prominence in the series as the man who led the forces that liberated the bridge nation of Tequila Wolf, very notably freeing Nika Robin in the process, as well as escorting her to the headquarters of Baltigo for Robin to begin her highly mysterious 2 years with this organization. And I will say that anime watchers will probably be far more familiar with Bunny Joe because his role was pretty heavily expanded upon, and he even got a brief fight against some guards. Whereas in the manga, he actually appears as part of the Straw Hat separation cover story, and apart from that one drawing, we still have yet to see anything else of him, really. So that's why we're hopping into number 11, which is Morley, a placement that makes me both happy and sad. I can understand that he may not be the most popular of the 4 commanders, those guys are all pretty unique and funky in their own trademark Oda way, but Morley just has such character about him. A giant Okama with an interesting devil fruit ability, and a habit of completely misreading any and all situations, such as when he accused Peachbeard of having a crush on him. So yeah, 134 votes, it seems a bit low to me, especially when multiple votes were allowed, but hey, that's why I do this, because I love to know what the fan base at large thinks, and apparently, we don't think too much of Morley. So next up we have number 10, another commander being Lindbergh, who very excitingly is a mink as well as some sort of mad cat scientist. However, I will say that of all the commanders, Lindbergh is the one that I probably take to the least, even though I do admittedly love his semi-steampunk aesthetics. I think it's because in the debut chapter of the commanders, Lindbergh just had the least to do though. Like, we saw the powers of the other 3, all of which were incredibly intriguing, and then Lindbergh was just sort of there, saying that he had new weapons but not actually using the new weapons. So he just ended up being the weakest impression for me. With that said, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing more of him, especially because he's a mink, and that could mean a potential Sulong transformation, even if Lindbergh seems like the less head-on fighty type. So cracking the top 10 even further, in 9th place we have ended up with Hack, managing to accrue 251 votes. And Hack is an interesting guy, probably best known for claiming to be a friend of Jinbei, as well as being defeated by Bartolomeo in the Corridor Coliseum, which is memorable to me because it involved Bartolomeo urinating mid-battle and Hack falling into this taunting trap. But due to the color of his hair and the various spots on his face, you could be forgiven for thinking that Hack was a fairly old fishman. He has that wizened martial arts master vibe about him. However, in truth, Hack is a mere 38 years old. It's just the combination of his color scheme and texture as a Japanese soldier fish that makes him appear that little bit beyond his years. And something very interesting to note about the Revolutionary Army at this stage is that our last 3 contenders have been a fishman, a mink, and a giant. Not many factions can claim to have united that sort of spread of individuals, and in fact the Revolutionary Army might be closer to achieving Big Mom's dream of uniting all of the world's races than she ever will be. But moving on to someone who is very human now, we have Bello Betty in 8th place, who has been mentioned a couple of times at this stage. And I would say that Bello Betty stuck out immediately in the minds of many fans for 2 key reasons, which are showcased in Oda's very commonly used design choice for women wearing jackets with no shirt. However, Bello Betty possesses one of the more insane and I think heavily underrated devil fruits in the series, which is known as the Kobu Kobu no Mi, which which can increase the fighting spirit and even the physical strength of those around the user, provided that they are encouraged directly by the words of the user. And this makes Bella Betty one of the greatest assets of the Revolutionary Army because her ability can single-handedly change the outcome of any large-scale conflict. Not the greatest of powers to use one-on-one, but then again, that's not what the Revolutionary Army is all about. Pretty scary though, and I have no doubt that she will be absolutely integral in whatever their ultimate plans are. But now for number 7, we have a character who I feel gets forgotten about within this cohort, being Inazuma, who managed to gather an impressive 441 votes. And Inazuma, of course, first appeared in the Impel Down arc as the deputy commander of the G Army. But Inazuma is also a great candidate to be the MVP of the entire Paramount War saga, having saved the lives of both Luffy and Bon Clay, briefly facing off against Magellan one-on-one, and being the person who quite literally created the path for Luffy to reach Ace's execution platform. I also greatly enjoy his split aesthetic, very simple but very effective, and this is also reflected in how he switches frequently between being a man and a woman, so Inazuma is duality incarnate, and it's nice to see him this high up in the rankings. As for 6th place, we have a surprising one for me because it is Karasu, the commander of the North Army. And if we're keeping track here, this does make Karasu the most popular commander according to this poll, and yeah, I probably would not have predicted that. At the beginning of this, I would have bet a fair bit on Bella Betty attaining that position, but then again, what is not to like about Karasu? He has a mysterious yet cool vibe about him, as well as access to some level of comedy, judging by how easily infuriated he becomes over seemingly arbitrary factors. But the thing that usually has me thinking about Karasu is obviously his devil fruit. Unlike Morley and Bella Betty, we don't have a name or description of his power, which is troublesome, because it's very difficult to pinpoint even what basic type of fruit it is. Karasu at face value displays the qualities of both a Zoan and a Logia, being able to turn his body into crows. And that brings up many questions, like is he a Logia user who molds his element into the illusion of crows, but if so, what exactly is that element? Or is he some kind of special Zoan that can transform into an entire murder of crows rather than just one? Or it could be neither, because that is the wonderful mystery of Karasu. Alright, top 5 time now, and we are starting off with Koala, who marks a skyrocketing of votes, sitting at 1,758, which is more than 3 times the amount Karasu received in 6th place, meaning that these top 5 candidates are clearly considered in a league of their own. Koala for very obvious reasons, I think, because of all of the Revolutionary Army members, she is one of the rare few that we know the backstory of, having appeared in the Fisher Tiger flashback and managing to melt the cold, fierce hearts of most of the Sun Pirates. Most, definitely not all. However, in a grand sense of tragedy, she would also inadvertently lead directly to the demise of Fisher Tiger himself. But as a result of this, it's very easy to get on board with Koala. I mean, she hasn't done much, if anything, in the modern day, but her presence is always appreciated because she does have deep connections to the history and key figures of this series. Meanwhile, in an almost 800 vote jump, 4th place is inhabited by the one and only Emporio Ivankov, a truly unforgettable character capable of reaching both the heights of action and comedy, and not only that, but Ivankov can also mix the two, creating a truly unique presence within the series. And to me, Ivankov is just the epitome of Oda. He is a character who proudly displays that Oda is never afraid to delve into more left field ideas, even for exceptionally prominent characters, and that's just One Piece, and that's why I love it. However, I will say that Ivankov's existence did have quite an effect on the fanbase at large, because due to the horror to me, it is now possible to theorize that literally anybody is the mother of literally anybody else. But otherwise, Ivankov is fantastic, and I am very much looking forward to seeing him kick into action once more. A very opposite style of character now, because in 3rd place we have Bartholomew Kuma, who I will note did significantly better in this poll than he did in the Warlord ranking. A bronze medal is nothing to scoff at. It's not all that surprising though, because in this pool of characters, Kuma is a prominent enigma, a burning question that needs answering at all costs. And I could continue, but talking about Kuma usually just results in me listing all of the things we don't know about him, so I'm going to move on to something we do know, which is our 2nd place finisher, Monkey D. Dragon, who really did not beat Kuma by very much at all. Less than 80 votes between them, but our revolutionary leader prevailed, at least in this case. And really it was kind of a toss-up for me as to how well Dragon was going to do here. He's traditionally quite a surprisingly unpopular character in Japan, but definitely seems to hold more prevalence in the West. And yeah, there are quite a few characters who I could have seen ranking higher. However, there was only one who actually managed to do it, and that is, of course, Sabo. A fair bit higher as well, holding the prestige of being the only character in this poll to receive over 3,000 votes, and thus becoming the undisputed victor. And this is less surprising because Sabo is Sabo. It's hard to argue with the popularity of a character who is so specifically designed to be cool, as well as one so intrinsically linked to our protagonist in a way that even the Straw Hats aren't. In addition to that, that, a lot of Sabo's existence is directly associated with the inherited will of Ace, and all of this in combination is going to make him a very well-liked lad.